And here with me to talk about those Giants is longtime Giants fan Brian Sutton. Brian, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I really appreciate it. And the good thing is about this podcast, it allows me to interact with a bunch of fans of different teams, people I've never met before. I know Brian through basically a mutual person. It's his sister, Christina, who's also been on this podcast before when we did our Honda Campus All-Star Challenge podcast. But yeah, again, Brian, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The first thing I always normally ask everybody is, how did you become a Giants fan, and when did you become a Giants fan?
Boy, it's probably been my whole life, probably since I came out the womb. But the most I can remember was those 90s teams. They didn't do too well. You know, after Phil Simms left, I remember the Jeff Hostetler, after he won that Super Bowl era, then Kerry Collins, Amani Toomer, Tiki Barber, those days. Then it got on to like the Kurt Warner when we got to the Super Bowl with Kerry Collins, lost to the Ravens. I was probably like 10 or 11. So those are my earliest memories of the New York Football Giants. You know, I didn't see Lawrence Taylor play. I'm a little too young for that. But I remember the tail end of those days into the Kerry Collins, Amani Toomer, Ike Hilliard, you know, Jeremy Shockey before Eli Manning, all those days.
What is your most memorable thought? What's your biggest memory as a Giants fan? I assume it's one of those 2 wins against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. I think the biggest, most fondest memory I always have, I always tell people this, if I had amnesia, I remember this moment. It was a moment where we actually, Eli Manning broke the sack, you know, that play. He broke the sack under Richard Seymour in the Super Bowl. I think that was an 18-0 Super Bowl, I think it was. And he threw that ball to David Tyree in the middle of the field on Rodney Harrison. And to me, that's the greatest play in the history of Giants football. That is one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history, in my opinion. Top 10 play in Super Bowl history. And I think that play was what sticks out in modern Giant fans, you know, minds. Now, some older Giant fans might go back to like the Harry Carson, Lawrence Taylor days with Phil Simms and that great teams. But my lifetime, I remember those teams and that particular play that stands out to me the most.
Going into the season, there had to be expectations. Brian Daboll being named the coach of the Giants after the Joe Judge era or error, depending on how people would say it. What were your thoughts about this season, and what were you expecting the Giants to do?
Absolutely nothing. To be honest with you, I kind of thought we would get maybe 6, 7 wins. Bill was going to take a little upswing, but nowhere near the playoffs. I was not sure how Saquon was going to come back. I'm glad he came out the way he did because it definitely turned our season around to have him healthy and have him playing the way he's been playing, top 5 in the league in rushing, top 5 in the league in all-purpose yards. So he's definitely had his comeback season. But no Giant fan, I can tell you this, expected us to have more than 7 wins. And I guarantee you nobody thought that we was going to be able to not only get a 6 seed, but to get the 6 seed by week 17 and not have to worry about that week 18 game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So we put ourselves in a really good position, and I didn't think we was going to be here. I thought that Brian Daboll was the coach that we needed, not because, you know, he was any different than Joe Judge or Ben McAdoo. I thought because of the style of how he coached. When he was with Buffalo, he had Josh Allen. He turned him into Josh Allen. Before Brian Daboll, Josh Allen was Danny Jones. And now you see Josh Allen as Josh Allen. So now when I seen Brian Daboll, I was like, oh, he can do the same thing with Daniel Jones. He hasn't done the same with Daniel Jones, but he's played to Daniel Jones' strengths and weaknesses. He only throw for 3,000 yards, but he's rushed for 700. He's the 5th player in NFL history to have 3,000 passing yards and 700 rushing yards. So he has really played real well this season. And I think that Daboll just got more out of the team than we ever thought he would.
Was there a point in the season that you felt you were confident the Giants were making the playoffs? I'm assuming it's the win over Washington because that made the odds very, very strongly in the Giants' favor that they're going to make the playoffs. But was it something else?
Okay. Well, for me, I was kind of crazy. We were 6-2. And we kind of had that little kind of butterfly schedule, easy schedule. We beat some good teams, beat the Ravens in that stretch. We beat some good teams with Lamar Jackson too healthy. But I thought that, we was going to make the playoffs if we stayed on that track. But then we had that little stretch where we lost 4 of our last 5, and then we tied it the first time with the Redskins, or the Commanders, should I say. And then I went to that game in D.C., Sunday Night Football. I went to that game December 17th, and it was a great game, great atmosphere. And that game, yes, that was probably the biggest game of the season because whoever won that game basically was going to the playoffs. So I knew that game was big, and I knew that right around that time that if we win this game, we was going to the playoffs. So that was my immediate playoff game right there for the regular season.
What was the game that made you worry about the Giants' spot in the NFC playoffs?
Okay. The game, I feel like we had a lot of games that that Minnesota Vikings game where we should have beat them. We could have beat them. We played our behinds off. I think we got more of our offense than we got all year. We threw for over 400 yards, almost 400 yards, over 500 yards in total offense. We played really well. We lost on a 61-yard field goal. So I'm thinking like, man, all right, we done already had this hiccup. We had hiccups against the Seahawks. We had hiccups against the Redskins. We had hiccups against other teams. And I just thought that, dang, man, I just hope we come back focused and play Indianapolis the way we play Minnesota. And we did. But I was worried, though, that after that loss, that's a demoralizing loss. Losing by 1 or 2 points on a 61-yard field goal when you had a chance to win. So it was a tough, demoralizing loss. And then depends on how young teams like us come back from that, like the Giants come back from that. I necessarily didn't know if we was actually going to be able to come back and win that game against the Colts. It was a huge game. Home field, everything. So we had to win that game. That was the only time I was a little worried. Was that game.
Looking at the brackets, I know that the brackets are already out, and of course the Giants are taking on the Vikings in a rematch from earlier this season. Who in the NFC playoffs do you feel that the Giants match up the best with?
Who we can play? I was looking at scenarios. I didn't want to face the 49ers. That defense is insane. They're flying. We don't have the offense to be able to get first downs against a defense like that. So I said, I don't want to see the 49ers. I don't want to see the Philadelphia Eagles. They know us. They're a division team. They beat us, twice this season, even though this last game we didn't play anybody. But they beat us twice and they got confidence against us. I didn't want to deal with them. I thought the Minnesota Vikings, to be honest with you, a lot of people saying that they're not that good. No, they're very good. They won 13 games, and they showed us that they were very good. They came back. We was up by 11 points. We should have won that game. They came back again like they always did all year. But I still think we match up well. I think our corners and safeties match up well with Justin Jefferson. We got McKinney coming back this week. Adore is healthy now. Aziz, we're going to have some pressure on the defensive line. I think we will be able to slow down Jefferson, and we will be able to make Kirk Cousins look like playoff Kirk Cousins. And honestly, I don't know, nobody knows. Like we've seen Kirk Cousins in the playoffs. He has not been the greatest. So now we don't have that playoff experience like Kirk Cousins. So it's going to be a tough game. But I do think that's the most favorable matchup for us going into the playoff wildcard weekend.
I know you started answering some of the questions about the teams you were hoping to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Eagles. You mentioned the Niners. Is Tampa Bay also on that list? I mean, everybody says don't count out Tom Brady, regardless of how this season has gone for Tampa Bay as well.
Not this season. Yes, I would say never count out the GOAT. The man has 7 Super Bowls, been to 10. I mean, you can't count him out. I mean, it's almost like counting out LeBron James at this point. You really can't count these people out. But at the end of the day, it's not about time. Football is a team sport, man. It's offense, defense, and special teams. And I don't think that the Buccaneers' offense, defense, and special teams are even high Super Bowl championship or even Super Bowl contention caliber. They barely got in. And everybody talking about last week when they played well against the Panthers. The Panthers are 6-11 or whatever they are. They're not that good. So I don't know if the Buccaneers are, some team that anybody can fear. Even though they do have Tom Brady, he is the GOAT, and he can scare you. but I don't think that overall defense is playing as well as it did when he won the Super Bowl or even last year. I don't think the offense is as cohesive as it was when they was winning Super Bowls or even last year. I just don't think that team is the same. That running game is gone downhill. They only have Mike Evans. They don't put the ball on nobody else. The offensive line is not giving Tom Brady enough time. And as you know, Tom Brady needs time to get rid of the football. He's not a guy who can get out the pocket and make plays with his legs or make plays on a run. He has to be in the pocket. So that offensive line has not been the same. He has not been the same quarterback. And I just don't see them as a real legit threat.
You mentioned earlier Brian Daboll and all the things that he could do, and everybody saw the potential of turning Daniel Jones around or turning Daniel Jones into something very productive. I mean, what else does it mean by the culture he's instilled? You had last year with Joe Judge, and he basically everybody thought he was going to be back another year, and then all of a sudden, I guess him making one statement, thinking, talking too soon before he thought he knew everything, and then he was out on his behind. But then Daboll has really changed the culture. What is it about the culture that he's changed?
He's changed accountability. Accountability, man. Everybody, no matter if you're the star player or you're the last guy, one of the water boys, you are going to be held accountable for what you do or what you don't do. And as you can see with some of the guys we put in rotations, some of the guys we've taken out of our rotation, he doesn't care what your name is or how much money you make or what your status in the league is or if you're a veteran or not. If you're willing to play and do the things that he's asking you to do to win, you're going to be in. If you don't do it, you're not going to be in. And that's look at a prime example. Kenny Galladay. That was a Dave Gettleman and a Joe Judge signing. That wasn't Brian Daboll signing. Now, but Brian Daboll did give him an opportunity to come in at the beginning of the season, make plays, make an impact. He didn't do that. Now he's on the bench. Now, some of our fans are upset about that. But me, I see it as I don't care how much money you make. You want to win, you got to come in and play with the same mentality the coaches have. Same thing. Our defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, he's done a really, really good job turning that defense around. So it's not just about Brian Daboll. Yes, it is. He's a huge part of it, but it's about who Brian Daboll put around him as well to help him succeed. And that's what I think has turned the whole culture around. Like week one was a turning point immediately. Week one. I saw how hard we played the Tennessee Titans, which was last year's, I think it was number 1 seed last year, the AFC, or number 2 seed, one of the two in the AFC last year. And we played them really hard week one and we beat them. But Brian Daboll said, you know what? I ain't trying to tie the game. I ain't trying to go for the win. And he gave the ball to Saquon on a running play on a 2-point conversion, and we got it and we won the game. Those things right there shows your players you have confidence in them, and your players will go to war for you, and they'll down that field for you almost. Not no pun intended, because you know what happened with D. Hamlin. Making sure he's getting better and everything. But I'm just saying, like, literally put their body on the line for you if you got that confidence in them as well. And that's what he started. He started that culture, and not only in week one, but in training camp and preseason. You could just see how hard the defense was playing. You could see how hard the offense was playing. You could see how guys wanted to play for each other and had each other's backs. And those are the things that help you win and change culture.
Going on to the Super Bowl prediction, who do you have coming out of the NFC? Who do you have coming out of the AFC? Who wins the game, and what's the final score?
Okay, this is wow. All right, the AFC to me is I don't see nobody on the planet stopping Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry, I just don't. To me, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. And he's doing way better without Tyreek Hill. I mean, seriously, they might thought he was going to be a fall off without Tyreek. He's doing better. He's had his best overall statistical season without him. Because now he can spread the ball around all day, and it makes him even harder to guard, and it makes defenses even harder to stop him. So I don't think nobody in the AFC, everybody else to me is vulnerable. Buffalo Bills, no running game. Their defense is not that great. Lamar Jackson's not there for the Ravens. Who else is in there? The Jags are not that good. I don't see nobody. The AFC is so, to me, it's Chiefs and nobody else in the AFC.
Cincinnati? What about Cincinnati?
No, they're the only team that even threaten the Chiefs. I like what they're doing. I just don't like their defense. Like, to me, if that was to be the AFC Championship game, that'll go down to the last possession, to be honest with you. And I think if Patrick Mahomes, and I'm gonna trust Patrick Mahomes with the ball in his hands in the fourth. Now I know Joe Burrow has had so many fourth quarter comebacks in his young career, but Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. There's tier one, it's Patrick Mahomes, nobody else. Then you can argue who's tier two, and you can argue who's tier three. So to me, that is the team in the AFC, and there's only two teams that even battle for that spot, and that's the Bengals and that's the Chiefs. In my opinion, the Bills are not there. Ravens are not there. Jags are not there. Dolphins are definitely not there. So I don't see nobody. I mean, those are only two teams. I think those are teams that put me in the AFC Championship game, to be honest with you. The Bengals and the Chiefs. And then in the NFC, that's the toughest one because there's so many teams. It's question marks with each team in the NFC. There is no team you can say, oh, it's a clear-cut Super Bowl contender. Because even the 49ers, they're really, really good. They got everything, all the talent in the world. The one problem, the quarterback. Do you really think a seventh round, quarterback is going to win you a Super Bowl first year? The odds are. Then you have the Minnesota Vikings. Nobody believes in Kirk Cousins. Nobody believes in that team. They had 11 wins by 7 points or less. They've been in dogfights all year. Nobody really believes in them. Giants, they'll say it's a fluke. I don't even think we're that talented. You can get one win, but I don't think we're going that far. We are a ascending team. We're just not ready to get Super Bowl contending yet. Neither is the Dallas Cowboys. Whack Prescott? Are you kidding me? Whack Prescott? Look what he's doing. He leads the league in interceptions, and he has 5 less games than the other guy who has the same amount of interceptions as he do. He's tied for the league in interceptions and played 5 less games than the guy who's next to him. So I don't believe in him. I don't believe in Tom Brady now. I just don't. There's no team. Maybe the Philadelphia Eagles could challenge the 49ers. But lately, the last month, 5 or 6 weeks, they haven't been looking like the same dominant Philadelphia Eagles team that we've seen the first 12 or 13 weeks. So the NFC is more wide open than the AFC, but the team I would say would be the team to come out would be the San Francisco 49ers. That's the team I would say would come out. So in both conferences would be the 49ers and the Chiefs. Those are two. And then the final score, because I think that it won't be that much of a shootout. I think it'll be 27-20 Chiefs. 27-20 Chiefs.
Yeah, it's going to come out a touchdown. Hopefully, it'll be a better scoring game, and hopefully Kyle Shanahan will actually use the running game to his advantage.
I think if it wasn't for Brian Daboll, he would be Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. I mean, your starting quarterback goes down, you get Jimmy G, he goes down, you bring in some dude, and he looks better than both of them. I mean, Brock Purdy looks better than both of them. And that's nothing but he's scheming guy. Brock Purdy don't got to do nothing but just play quarterback. He don't got to do nothing else. Guys are being schemed open. The play calls are so brilliant that there's Brandon Ayuk down the field on a seam route, or there's George Kittle on an in-breaking route. He's running 20 yards up the field, nobody touching him. It's Juwan Jennings running a post route. He's open all day. It's ridiculous how good the 49ers is with that scheme and what Shanahan has been doing.
Before we wrap everything up, didn't know if you had any shout-outs you wanted to give to anybody and ways people can reach out to you on social media to talk Giants football as well.
All right, you can talk mine. Facebook name, Brian Sutton. Instagram's name is Allah's Gift. You can find me on there. I also have a podcast, BAP Podcast, hosted by Brian. You can go on there and get some insight as well. I just, you can just interact with me on anything. Shout out to my 3 children. I love them to death. Shout out to my family, my sister that one night helped me introduce me to you, put me onto this podcast. Tina, appreciate you for that. And it was definitely a pleasure doing this again, man. I hope we do it again sometime.